Hey everybody, welcome back to Backlog Banter. I'm your boy Abram, joined as usual by Tucker Hazel. We're here telling some laughs, telling some tall tales, making each
Oh
other
yeah.
chuckle and
Yeah.
chortle, which is perfect because in honor of our intern,
Yep.
this is the very fun episode
Oh,
of
we're putting a
Backlog
little
Banter.
exclamation on it, or what?
Yeah,
Exemplifier.
yeah. Put an exclamation point in the title. There's no law. There ain't no law against it. You know what I
Nope.
mean?
Nope.
But Abby said, what did he say? He said that last week's episode was pretty fun.
Yeah.
We
And I'm
can do
like,
better. It's pretty
uh-oh,
fun.
we can do better than that. This is gonna be the really fun, very fun. I said one of those things.
It's some sort of fucking dumb superlative adjective. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
Who gives a shit? Tucker, I have played 3 games, two of which you have also played. You
Yeah.
have played like 95 games.
Yeah.
I've been like going to school and doing work and like I ain't got that game time in me.
I've
You
been
know what I
I've been
mean?
on
It's
a
legit.
grind that I didn't know was possible with my current schedule. I think
Yeah.
it was certainly assisted by the fact that I had our fall break last week, which meant my Monday and Tuesday
Right.
were more free. And I also just have been like using what free time I have
Yeah.
actually, and it's been feeling really good because usually I'm so stressed that I don't really want to allow myself to relax. I want to be able to focus on things.
I know
But
exactly what you mean.
yeah, it's a problem with my own psyche. But I haven't had that problem the last week, and it's been, frankly, good for my productivity. I'm ahead on my homework, and
Nice.
I've been playing like 7 hours of games a day for the
Yeah.
last week straight.
I am not ahead on anything, and I've played like no games, so it's a yin and yang tale this time.
we balance ourselves out, you know.
Yeah, yeah, fuck it.
Don't you feel good? Don't you feel better about yourself that I'm doing better than you?
What I just think is interesting is that in this episode, you will probably talk about more games than I talked about on BLB Live when
Hmm.
we went like 3 months
Yeah.
without an episode. You know what I
Sure.
mean?
It's true.
And I'm not saying this as a criticism, but as a
No.
sort of a statement of awe.
Oh.
So why don't you just pick? Why you know what, Tucker? Just fuck it. Just pick a game. You know what I
Just talk
mean?
about a game. I might as well.
Just pick a game.
Well, here's the thing. You do have more games to talk about. You just haven't completed games. And I've actually noticed this. You talk about games sometimes like, oh yeah, I'm playing this, but then you never bring them up on BLB because you forget that you played them because you didn't complete them, so you didn't log them on your backlog. And
What?
one of those games is the first game that I've beaten in this last time frame, which is the new release on Xbox Game Pass, Scorn.
I
You played
played.
some of that,
I
so
played
you
Scorn
can
for
talk about
15
that game.
minutes.
Oh, I thought you went back to it. You said you wanted to.
No, but then I had other things I had to do. I played 15 minutes. I'm like, I'm hungry. I'm gonna go get a meatball sub, and then I came back and my day moved on. Though, you know what I
Sure,
mean?
sure.
But you beat Scorn, so why don't you tell me about Scorn?
Yeah, I did beat Scorn in about 5 hours total, so not a particularly long game, and
Yeah,
one that I was never like super sold on. I
yeah,
thought that it was just like an Alien knockoff when we saw it at one of our Xbox press conference. But the game came out and it was getting strangely mixed reception,
yeah.
causing a little bit of strife and murmur on the internet. And I'm like, I'll just give it a try. And the opening area and the beginning pacing of the game, the lack of handholding, really turned me off
Yeah.
at first. And I had to sit there and be like, what can I interact with? What's the goal here? There is
Right.
no dialogue. There's no text in this game to teach you anything. And after watching a guide of like the first puzzle in the game,
Yeah.
I almost never had to look up a guide after that because this game has really weird onboarding, but once you're in the zone of Scorn and know what to look for, it's
Yeah.
actually a surprisingly linear game. I saw some comments and some reviews saying, "Oh, you got to do a lot of backtracking," and not really. Like maybe within an area because the areas are like big puzzles in themselves, but like I really found that to be a problem. Scorn is a game that is designed unlike anything you've ever seen before. It is biotech. Everything
Yeah.
is dark and gray and bloody and gross, and there's weird creatures, and you don't know what's going on in the world, and you're a guy that has an alien implanted in the front of him. It's really strange and gross, but I ended up really enjoying it because it's a short experience. It's
Yeah.
incredibly unique, and while it is weak in a few areas, its tone, the sense of exploration in these strange environments, and the puzzle gameplay really ended up clicking with me, and I was able to beat the game in 2 sittings.
Yeah. I think Scorn is a really remarkable game in terms of just its commitment to its bit,
Yeah,
which is just sort of its world. I mean, I played very briefly, but sort of what I was taken by immediately is the sound design. I think the sound design
Yeah.
is really fucking good. Like when you stick your fingers into This is a game about fiddling with contraptions, and when you
Yes.
stick your finger in a contraption to fiddle with, you feel
Your
it.
guy goes.
Yes. The other one I really like is when you're in the menu, when you click on something, you hear a gulp.
Oh,
So
really? I didn't
Mhm.
notice that.
and every menu click, and it's just like that's
Sure.
really clever. Um, I think what it just comes down to is like I don't have the interest in a game that structures itself this way.
Mm.
What I mean to say is that puzzle games, for me, if puzzles are a vertical of an experience, are my least favorite part of it,
Sure.
i.e.,
Yeah.
Uncharted,
Mm.
i.e., things like that, right? I'm just not really a puzzle gamer, I suppose, unless it is an arcadey puzzle game. You know,
Hmm.
we love our Tetrises and our NES puzzlers here on this program, but
Some of
yeah,
us more than others.
right. I think for me, Scorn is just somebody else's really great game. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's one of the, I'm like, I'd salute Scorn if I saw it on the street,
Sure.
but
Well,
I'm
actually,
not.
you'd probably run away because you are a squeamish individual, and I'm
Yeah,
surprised you even gave this game a try. And frankly, I wouldn't even suggest that you
yeah,
continue because it only amps itself up more and more in terms of the gore and the body horror and the
right.
blood curdling screams as your guy is like tortured constantly throughout this game.
Yeah, I think what I've come to kind of realize about myself though is that it's more the suspension of disbelief in video games is also that it doesn't really bother me.
Okay.
With Resident Evil 7 being maybe like the critical example,
Sure.
because Resident Evil 7 so fucking scares the bejesus out of me. But like, if Scorn was like a movie, you know, live
Yeah.
action picture, no way. It's like Tucker. There's this movie called Terrifier 2. You must be familiar with it, right?
A newer movie, but I'm not familiar with it that much. I
It's
know it
just
just released though.
yeah. I just like if people are fucking fainting watching this movie, like I don't. That's not
From
gonna.
my experience, the movies that people say that about aren't really that bad.
I don't. Bottom line, Tucker.
Go watch
Scorn.
the Saw movies.
I will never watch Saw. So if you held a gun to my head and say, "Watch Saw, or I'm gonna shoot you," I'd say, "Brother, man, make sure that safety's off and pull the trigger." I'm not watching Saw. But no, Scorn is very cool.
Yeah, it's a good game, and
Yeah.
but I understand why it's divisive because
Yeah.
it takes an almost classic adventure game pacing, like a
Right.
Myst or something, where it just drops you in a world and says, "Yeah, figure it out." And
Yeah.
the game is constantly shifting what its puzzle mechanics are, and no two areas are progressed through the same way. And you do have to have a pretty good mind for spatial awareness when it comes to the world being just giant sets of contraptions and contraptions that contribute to larger contraptions. And if you see the way that something is set up, you can kind of figure in your mind, oh, maybe this needs to be interacted with in a way that sets up something here so it can be grabbed onto and brought
Yeah.
somewhere else. And that was really compelling to me because it feels like a cohesiveness that you don't
Yeah.
really get from many games. Like you're talking about puzzles being areas in games, and this entire game's world is a puzzle, unless it's like a big open area that you're like just walking through to get to somewhere else. But it ends in crazy ways. The story is non-existent, but I was impressed by its visual clarity,
Yeah.
some of the best lighting and particle effects, and just graphical detail in a game by a small team. I do recommend people try this game, but if you look at a trailer and you're like, that's not for me, then don't play it. No way in hell.
Yeah, I think it's a really strong creative vision above
Yeah,
anything
oh,
else.
absolutely.
And the team executing on it in the way that they did is very, very impressive to me.
Mhm.
But
Strong
It's just-
creative visions is going to be the theme
Yeah.
of today's episode. The
It's
really
ju-
fun episode here.
it's just not a game for me. But I almost think that, and we'll talk about a game that's supposed to be for everybody later on in the show. And I think that when you hone in and determine, I've got a narrative or an experience to give to a particular audience,
Yeah.
the end result is usually stronger than if you're sort of taking a universalist approach to design. Not always, but that's just an idea that's on my mind right now,
Mhm.
which we'll explore more when I talk about Modern Warfare. But
It's the Black Adam problem.
yeah,
The movie is supposed to be for everyone, so they got a kid in there to appeal to them. They got the teens in there. They got the old man in there. They got the Black Adam in there.
and it really worked.
Don't go watch our hour-long Black Adam review where we just babble about how crap that movie is for an hour. Let's go to something else. And you know my classic BLB bit. Let's go to something similar, which of course, by which I mean not similar at all, because I purchased and played through, ostensibly in just a few hours, What Golf on
Yes,
Nintendo Switch.
yeah.
A game that I would always see clips of and trailers for and be like, this is silly. And that kind of silliness
Yeah.
appeals to me. And irreverence and self-referentiality to games history in a way that I wasn't expecting. And it's a lovely little time.
Yeah.
It's a short 3-hour game, lots of levels, lots of replayability in terms of each level that you're playing. All right, hold on. Scratch this. Let's set this ground stage. What the golf?
Set the
What the
stage.
fuck is what the golf? You know,
Yeah.
it's a golf game, and you use the mechanics of golf of charging up your swing and shooting something somewhere else to do just about whatever the developer can think of. And it can be in a 3D plane, it can be in a 2D plane, it can be in first person view, it can be in third person view. They just use this one charge up and go forward mechanic in every possible way that you can imagine.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're the golf ball, sometimes you're the golf club, sometimes you're the guy with the golf club, sometimes you're a house, sometimes you're a cat, sometimes you're a car, sometimes you're trying to collect things, sometimes you're trying to kill other people. It's so insane in terms of its variety. And the structure being this like laboratory that you're a golf ball trying to break out of. It's so weird that I was just constantly having fun because you never know
Yeah.
what's going to come next, and the world themes are so strange, and within them it can go anywhere. It's a really really fun game. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's one that I always saw, and it's part of that sort of class of Apple Arcade games that needed a better home than Apple Arcade.
And it has it.
Yeah.
It released on other platforms at the same time.
Oh, did it?
It's on Switch.
No, no, but I thought this was one because there's a lot of games that were on Apple Arcade, and then 8 months, a year later, they leave Apple Arcade.
Maybe that's true. Yeah.
That I might be completely wrong, but
No, you might be completely right as well.
Yeah, those are the two options. But yeah, it's Tucker. There's just
No, you're right. Yeah, like eight months later. Yeah.
There's only
There's,
so much
there's a lot
time.
of games out there. But
There's
I
always-
do think that this game might appeal to you in terms
I
of
think
its
it would.
bite-sized nature. Each level is 90 seconds long, 2 minutes long. There's just so many of them,
Yeah.
and it commits to each level just being its bite-sized thing. And what I think is really clever about this is not only are there a ton of levels, a ton of worlds, a lot if you just want to see the end of the game, but each level has 3 versions of itself. There is playing through the level, then there's playing through the level with a limit of how many times you can putt, trying to get a par. And then there's a third version which just takes whatever gimmick that level has and puts it into a completely new context, which ostensibly just makes it another level with like kind of the same idea. So there's like 3 times the levels of the already crazy amount of levels and secret areas and all sorts of stuff like that. That I really adore this game, not because it's one of my favorite games of all time, but because talking about committing to its bit. Like it knows what its thing is, and it'll say, hey, this is the level where you're playing as a golf ball in a Super Mario Bros. Knockoff. And so then that world is just a bunch of little Super Mario Bros. Knockoff levels. There's super hot stuff. There's portal stuff.
That's
like
very fun.
they're really going down the list in terms of wearing its influences on its sleeve, but combining super hot mechanics and Super Mario Bros. Mechanics and portal mechanics with their own mechanics to make each level feel like they stand out very immensely. So
Sure.
strong recommendation for What the Golf, and you can go download it on your Switch.
Pass.
Talk pass. You wanna talk about Beanie and Tori 3D?
Yeah, sure. Beanie.
Beanie.
What is Beanie really? And here's what I think Beanie is ultimately. Because it's kind of a lot of things. It's this little 99-cent platformer. It's this homage to DKC era Rare. It's a prelude to Super Kiwi 64. But above all, I think it's just a really successful little game.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a vertical platformer with very simple. You're a big fucking fat bee and you're climbing up trees.
A bee who rolls. He doesn't fly.
True.
He's so fat he just goes around the environment. I like that.
Yeah, and I picked it up primarily because I love the DKC Rare aesthetic, and it's interesting that very few indie titles try to emulate that.
No, I can't think of another one.
I can't either. You know, you got like Platonic doing DKC in general, and there's other games like K's. I know is one people like a lot. That is DKC esque, but not trying to appropriate sort of the technological style Rare invented.
Yeah.
And to that extent, I think it's quite successful.
Yeah.
You know, there's not a lot of meat on the Beanie bone.
No.
But when I pay 99 cents for it, all I'm really looking for is what the game provides, which is, to me, 30 minutes, 40 minutes worth of satisfying, simple platforming.
Yeah.
I like the implementation of the the time trial once you finish the game.
Mhm.
If anything, I just wish that Beanie pushed back on you a little bit more. It's basically
Sure.
impossible to lose, you know.
Yes. There's two things that make that so is
Right.
the enemies don't damage you, they knock you back a little bit, and also even though it's a game where you can't go back, like ratchet scrolling, like the original Super Mario Bros. Or Kid Icarus, as we did talk about, but you will see us talk about in our Kid Icarus retrospective video.
Yeah.
It's not a problem because you can't die because there's a little
No.
platform of guys that follows you underneath no matter where you go, so it catches you.
Yeah.
So there is no losing of progress in Beanie. There's losing the progress of making one or two jumps, maybe. But though that wasn't necessarily a problem for me, though I can absolutely understand. Like there should just be a toggle of
Yeah.
you can fall, and that's probably not that hard to implement.
Yeah, I mean, it really is just annoying on sort of your first time through that set of levels because when you're racing for time, then there's a justification not want to mess up in the first place.
Yeah.
But also, like, a lot of my issues end up being moot because you beat the game and you can 100% it in easily less than an hour, right?
Yeah.
And there's plenty of replayability in terms of unlocking Tori and things and playing those cities differently for faster times. But I just think that it's hard to poke holes in Beanie when it's so small and so committing to the bit. Maybe this is the committing
Yeah.
to the bit episode. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's a simple concept executed quite well, and that's going to extend to Tori 3D.
It did. Well, I mean, Tori 3D's commitment to its bit extended to this, was extended from the developers' other
Yeah.
games. But I've discovered this gentleman,
Right.
what Ciatro, I believe, is his developer name.
Yeah.
In collaboration with Diplodocus Games, who just makes his own small games and sells them for 99 cents, and just like, hey, if you enjoy this, support me. And I really, even though I like Beanie, I like the idea of its aesthetic. I like the idea of it being 99 cents, being made by one guy, being connected to his other games in sort of a loose, strange way. I like all those things, but
Yeah.
the gameplay itself I didn't love it. I beat the game. I beat it in 20 minutes. But it was just like I'm doing this because of these other ideas, not because I'm inherently in love with. The controls are good, but the level designs are
They're fun.
the same thing. It's the same thing over and over again. It's platform sticking out of the wall, platform in the middle, or platform sticking out of the other wall, and that's it. And the lack of variety, I think, is maybe the only reason I don't like really love this game. But for what it does, it absolutely does nail it.
Yeah, I think that. So the reason I said it extends to Tori is that's the order I play them in. I think.
Same here.
Yeah, Tori 3D is definitely the developer's most well-known title. I mean, Tori 3D is considered a little bit more widely to be one of the great platformers on Switch. Guys like Ant Dude have recommended it pretty strongly, I know. And it's always floating around, right? And what Tori 3D is ostensibly is it's a score chasing time trial 3D platformer.
Yeah.
Also very, very short.
Yes.
But I found Tori 3D to be even more successful because to me there's what do you gotta get right in every 3D platformer? This is a quiz, this is a test, it's pass or fail. Leave your answer in the comments. If you're right, you pass, if you're wrong, you fail. Movement. The reason that, in my opinion, a platformer, even if it fails in other respects, can find a sort of redeeming quality is if it feels good to control. And I think Tori 3D feels excellent to control. Its camera is a little bit fucking annoying. That's the one problem with it. But the act of running around, the density of the levels, so there's always corners you can cut, always strats you can take, right?
Yeah.
It feels really great to just run for better times. And again, you got to adjust your metrics a little bit when you're paying 99 cents for Tori 3D.
Absolutely.
So when I put down $1, $1 single dollar, and
I've
got this really successful, really fast, really precise 3D platformer, I have a great time. And I had a really, really great time with Tori 3D, and I'm going to play Tori 2 imminently. I just think that it's a really remarkable exercise in finding a lot of value and replayability out of a little. And I think it's a testament to the idea that if your game feels good, replaying a game because it feels good is sometimes all you need.
Yeah.
You know, and then you got the idea of racing for better time to sort of motivate you to keep playing. But it really just comes back to, for me, how good it feels to control you little bird fella.
You're a little Tori guy.
Yeah.
And I like this game a lot. I think it's a good game. I think that for me, it does feel less distinct than
Yeah,
Beanie, with the vertical nature of Beanie and the aesthetic, which again basically no one has ever tried since the
yeah,
Super Nintendo days. That certainly puts Beanie above it for me. I gave Tori 3D a 6 out of 10 on backlog. I again I like this developer. I
yeah,
like his commitment, but for me, I don't feel it controlled as well as you did, which is entirely
yeah,
subjective. But I found myself slipping off of stages and through cracks. I'm like, damn, didn't feel like that was on me. And also I don't really like its visual style that much, and the levels. It is a lot of subjective things where I'm like,
yeah,
I'm not super invested in this, but beat it in half hour, 99 cents on those metrics. It does succeed. But when I look through it in a very personal lens, I'm like, but we've talked about this with some other games like Liberation Maiden
yeah,
and Kirby Dream Buffet. I'm like, I do wish that this was something more. And for me in 3D platforming, controls are a good part of it, but it is a world that I'm interested in being in, and more motivation to explore, which these levels do not have because they are about getting
yeah,
from one end to the other in a way that, frankly, not many 3D platformers do. I mean, you got Crash, but the other main ones are more exploratory, and that's the kind of 3D platforming that really gels with me in exploring an environment and wanting to be in it, which
sure.
Tori doesn't have because it's like, get to the end of this level in 45 seconds. That is Tori, and that's fine, but it just isn't it's not my cup of tea.
Yeah, sure.
Where are we God, where are we gonna head next?
That's the question entirely in your hands.
It is in my hands. Let's talk about Cloud.
Yeah, the Genova Chen game.
Yeah, the Genova 10 game that I would consider the secret Genova 10 game, the forgotten Genova 10
I didn't know what it
game.
was till you started talking about it.
Well, I haven't really talked about it. I played it and I made the backlogged art for it.
Yeah,
And this is a game that is really interesting because you can feel the start of the things that became so successful in Flower and Journey, which is relaxing atmosphere, is a unique spin on controls and gameplay. Cloud is a game where you play as a little boy who is stuck in a hospital because he's got some sort of disease, and he looks out the sky and he dreams that he's up in the clouds. And so you are this little boy flying through the air. You suck clouds into you and you spit them back out in order to complete small challenges. There are only 4 levels. The game is free to download. It is very hard to find a link to this game that actually works.
yeah.
It's not available on Mac, so I had to play it on my my computer at work at the library. But I can share the link in the description if anyone wants to
Send me
find
the
it.
link, please. Yes.
But it's also a game that doesn't teach you itself. So I had to press every button on the keyboard. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? How do I control this character? Am I going too fast, too slow? What are the objectives of these stages? And from that regard, it's a free game. It's 4 levels. It was developed by students in the
Yeah.
2005. So all those caveats make it successful in that lens. But as a game that I wanted to like really be in, I didn't really understand it, and I couldn't figure out the controls of sucking the clouds into me because sometimes I was just zip past the clouds even though I was holding down the button that's supposed to suck them into me. But I was really interested in trying this game, not for more than 20, 30 minutes, whatever I spent with it, but because it is the beginning of one of the more interesting artistic games voices of the last decade. One of the most
Yeah.
important. I mean, Journey is one of the most influential games of the last few generations. And this is an obvious creative vision that was able to pun intended, flower and flow into larger things. Journey into larger things.
Yeah, I would really like to play this. The only Genova Chen games I've played are Flower and Journey,
Yeah.
which are the 2 that everyone's played.
They're
And
they're the only 2 that are widely available.
isn't
Well, actually,
Flow
that's not
on
true.
Flow's
But
on PSN?
I don't know if it's still available on PSN.
Oh,
I know Flower and Journey both got like HD
yeah,
remakes to go on to PS4, but I don't know if Flowers or Flow's been re-released. If it isn't, then maybe the only ways to play it is the Journey Collector's Edition, which is a PS3 disc with Flower, Flow, and Journey on it, which I have. But yeah, that one I don't think is as accessible. You can double check me on that, but
I'll double check as we're talking. But no, I like how cerebral Genova Chen's games are.
yeah.
And frankly, seems cool. I like the idea of exploring more student games. I mean, I'm
Hmm.
not sure I've played any games, student games. The one that's actually on my radar right now is Elec Head. If you remember that from
Oh yeah, yeah.
the indie world. I
which
would
is
love.
available actually for purchase,
Yeah,
unlike Cloud.
and I would love to play that, but I'd also love to play Cloud for the sake of the curiosity. But I'm much more interested, frankly, in Sky, which I know you also play,
Hmm.
which I'd like you to tell me about. But
Yeah.
yeah, Flow is available on PS4.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Never mind then. Guess I was wrong about that. That's certainly the one that less people talk about.
right.
It has the less distinct vision of what Journey and Flower take.
Yeah.
But I've played a little bit of Flow. Now that I'm more experienced with Genova Chen's own artistic visions, I think I could probably enjoy it a little more. But
Yeah.
when I played it for like an hour. I'm like, I don't understand this. Which is
Sure.
how some people feel about Flower and Journey.
Well, they're stupid and wrong.
I agree.
Talk to me about Sky.
Well, yeah, well, let's just transition to Sky, because Sky, I actually listened to the IGN Unfiltered interview with Genova Chen, which came out just a couple years ago when Sky was releasing. And Genova Chen talked about how he wanted to make Cloud into something more substantial. But
Cool.
the rights of Cloud being released for purchase are owned by USC because it was developed under their
Oh,
banner.
interesting.
They funded the game
Sure.
and all of that. So Genova Chen was like, I don't want to work with Sony again because they own my other 3 games. I don't want to work. I can't make Cloud specifically. So why don't I take what I've learned from Journey and Flower and in some ways Flow and especially Sky and make a game that combines all these influences. And Sky is a game that I knew existed, but I never tried because I'm like, oh, I love Flower, I love Journey. Why is this MF making a mobile game? God damn it. So I remember downloading it on my Switch when it came to Switch and then just never starting it because I'm like, free to play, mobile game,
That's why I didn't play
whatever.
it.
But no, it does not feel like that at all. And I've gotten over that stigma a little bit as I've played more substantial mobile games and noticed how mobile as a platform can be used for an artistic vision. And what's interesting about Sky is that it is the concepts of Journey with asynchronous or not asynchronous multiplayer, but like anonymous multiplayer, and building a sense of community with other people that you aren't familiar with, extended times 1 billion. And I actually like this game more than Journey. It's not as influential as Journey. It's not as popular as Journey, but it is Journey with more game. In
Sure.
terms of there is actual incentive to explore, and there's a lot more mechanics and some sorts of progression in ways that Journey intentionally stayed away from. And I love Journey because of that, but I was able to spend more time in Sky and connect more deeply to the multiplayer aspects of Sky than I was with Journey because it does lean into a more traditional game structure.
Now I need you to pump the fucking brakes, mate. Because
That's how I break my car.
I got a couple questions for you.
Okay.
First question: Is this a finite game? Is there an end to Sky?
There is an end, and it is intentionally very similar to the end of Journey, if you remember. But there's also not, because it is about finishing the game. Your character is reborn. You don't start from zero, but you start back at the beginning, and you're supposed to continue by helping other people get through the game.
Oh, okay.
Which I can talk a little bit about those multiplayer components if you're interested.
I mean, so yeah, it's like, what is it another walking simulator, or what are you actually doing in Sky?
Yes, but with more purpose.
Okay.
The walking simulator gameplay of there's not combat, there's not like upgrades to your character necessarily. Although you can unlock more flight, more flaps with your cape.
Sure.
Like you do in Journey with the scarf. And oh my god, I have my Journey scarf up there. You can see a tiny little bit of it. I love that fucking thing so much. But so you're going through like 7, I think, different environments, much bigger environments than in a Journey.
Less
much
linear?
greater. Yes and no. You can press A to do your ping like you do in Journey,
Yeah.
and it'll show you where you're supposed to go. Like there's a little icon off in the distance, like, oh, okay, this is where, if I want to get to the end of this area, that's where I need to head. But there's lots of nooks and crannies, and you can find a hidden path. And once you get enough, so the main collectible of this game is spirits, which are little blue people that you find in the environment, and you walk through their memories, and at the end of it, you release their spirit up to the Elder Temple at the end of the level, and once you meet them at the end of the temple, you can become friends with them, and they'll give you a new hair unlockable or a new emote or something like that. But the main crux of the game is being able to see everyone else who is playing the game in the world with you. So everyone who's playing Sky exists in the same instance of Sky. And at first, they're all just like black shrouds of people. There's no distinguishing features. There's no username. But if you go up to someone, you can pull out your candle and kindle them, and you can suddenly see what they look like. And if the two of you agree to become friends, then you can give them a randomly generated name or a name that you type in and choose, depending on what you're feeling like. I opted to go for the random generation to see what the funny names they came up with were. And as that progresses, you can continue to communicate with them and share the main collectible, which is candle, light, power, whatever. I don't know if it has a specific name. To unlock emotes that you can only do with them, like a high five or a hug, or the ability to share energy with them, or the most important thing of this game, and I think what really sells it as a unique spin on multiplayer, is holding hands. Someone can grab onto your hand and you can just lead them through the level, and they'll automatically copy all the actions that you do. If you're using your cape flap to fly, if you're going off of something, they'll just trail behind you. And that means if someone's not struggling with the traversal, if someone can't quite make a jump, you can just lead them and hold their hand through the level, and they can experience the world with you. And there are some certain instances where someone's struggling, there's rain that's like taking away their power, and you can go over and heal them and lead them through the level. So there is benefit to making friends, which is the only way to make progression, is to or social progression is to make friends, upgrade other people's skill trees.
Sure.
You never spend money or the currency on yourself. You spend it on others, which is a really interesting way to incentivize being social and helping others, because that's the only way to really grow your character and unlock more customizable options.
And where does the free to play come in?
Is that you can spend money to get more candle power, whatever it is, but you can get that from just like finding candles in the environment. You light candles, which then allows other people to get energy. So there's like that asynchronous social aspect. It's kind of like the social aspects in Death Stranding, where you place down other things. You can light a candle on a bench or light a candle next to something, and that'll allow other people to eat. Kind of, yeah, but before not before Death Stranding, but in development at the same time as Death Stranding. But I found this game to be gorgeous, incredible, beautiful environments. They have these clouds that roll that you like flow off of in really interesting ways. More mechanically interesting than Journey, and the multiplayer really hit home with me, because for the 2 main sessions that I played this game, I was able to find a friend and just spend 2 hours working with them and making our way around the environments and playing little games with each other, because you can unlock hide and seek, and someone hides in the environment. And by the end of the game, you really feel connected to these people that you've just shared pings with and upgraded things alongside each other. And when you finish the game, there's this really long section where you're just flowing through the environment, and all the people that you made friends with, that like versions of them come up alongside you, and you like sort of ascend into alternate reality or whatever. And it's a really powerful experience. It is gorgeous. It controls incredibly well. It does such interesting things with multiplayer, and it's free to play. It's available on mobile, and it's available on Switch, and it's one of my favorite games. I really, really love Sky.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really just looking at screenshots of it now, because I really did just cast it aside because it was not only mobile, but it was free to play, and I didn't.
Yes, exactly.
It just didn't seem interesting to me, despite my love of Flower and Journey. But hearing you talk about it and looking at it, I think that this might actually be the next thing I play. Because
you absolutely should, and we can play it together. There is you can invite people through Nintendo Switch or through whatever mobile thing. I don't know, send you a link. I don't know how it works. But very easy to set up together. Obviously, totally free to play.
Yeah.
And there's also events. Currently, there's an event where you have little side quests that are given to you by the music artist Aurora. And you talk to her spirit, which is in one of the areas, and it teleports you to an area where the progression through the environment is synced to the music of one of her songs, and it's this really interesting like
Wow.
audio visual experience where memories of these ghosts are telling a little story, and the song and the light is flashing along with the music. And I only did one of those, but I found that to be a really powerful experience. And I was playing it on my Switch in here, and Tanner and Anna were in the other room watching a movie. And Tanner opened his door, and Anna was like, "Is that Aurora?" I'm like, "Yeah, it is," because I didn't know she was like an established artist or anything. I'm just part of the game. But it's a really incredibly unique and interesting game.
Yeah, no, I will certainly be playing this soon. I feel like I've missed something I'd really
Same
enjoy.
here.
So.
I should have played this a few years ago.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe the first useful thing you've ever said to me.
Goddamn, when you're right, you're right.
All right, what's next?
Richard Hogg. You know him? I do. I not personally, but I love his work. He was the designer of Hohokum,
Okay.
which I tried a little bit last year and did not understand. And then Wilmot's Warehouse, which I played not too long ago and absolutely adored. But in the year of our Lord 2020, he put out a game that I remember seeing at a Nintendo Indie thing and that you bought. I Am Dead.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is, I don't know if you've seen I Am Dead. You have, but the colloquial you watching this. I don't know if you've seen I Am Dead or Wilmot's Warehouse or Hohokum, but none of these games are similar at all.
No.
Which means this motherfucker's got range in terms of the games that he's designing. But the only consistent through line is his unique hand drawn art style. And I think this game is incredible. For those of you who are unfamiliar, you are playing as a game named not a game, a guy, a fella. Sorry, got games in the brain.
Sure.
A fella named Morris Lupton, who has recently died, and he's from a little island out in the Scottish Sea, and he meets up with his dog in the afterlife, and you and your dog Sparky are traversing environments, trying to find someone who has also passed away that will take on the role of the island's spirit custodian that'll keep the island's nature and harmony intact. And so you go through these environments and you interact with the minds of the people who are still living to find memories of these people who have passed on. And once you watch their memory, you learn a little bit about them as a person, and each memory has an object that is associated with it. So you're then going through these puzzle box environments, trying to search for a book or something that they owned.
Yeah.
And the way that's made interesting is that because you're a spirit, you can slice things, which means you take a lunchbox and you go and you're like looking at the lunchbox, you can like manipulate it, and you can hold ZR or ZL to phase through it and see the slices of what it is and what is inside of it, which makes the idea of exploring these relatively small environments to be really intricate, because there's things hidden in everything, and sometimes they're 4 layers deep, but there's such a feeling of whimsy in this world, because you're not just a guy on a Scottish island. There are also a race of fish people that have a history here, and they really love toast. They really love toast. And there's people from another island that are just bird people, and fine. And this is just like how this world exists. Yeah. And I not only found that gameplay loop to be really charming, the art is beautiful. It's got this simple 3D aesthetic that is combined with Richard Hogg's aesthetic design sensibilities that makes it really beautiful to look at. And the story and world of this island is incredibly rich. I mean, everything that you look at has a flavor text that you can read or not. I didn't read very many of them, but there is a history to this island. There's a culture with the local seal race, which they call Morlos, have been hunted for generations. They have this yearly thing where they slaughter a bunch of the Morlos, and they've got this organization that's like fighting back against it. And there's this history with the fish people and how there's this how they work alongside the humans of this area. It builds a world in a really rich way that I wasn't expecting. It has incredible voice acting, like everything is voice acted, and it's like 5 hours long. So Richard Hogg, Godspeed. You're one of my favorite guys.
Nice. Yeah, it's certainly what I want to spend more time with. I remember buying it mostly because it was Annapurna, and I had recently played Donut County or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I loved its world. Didn't find myself especially interested by its sort of like puzzle explorative
Mm,
gameplay, but it's very subjective. I'm sure if I tried it again, I'd probably like it more. But
yeah.
not a whole lot to add to I Am Dead.
No, but I highly recommend
Yeah.
it. Available on Switch. Available on maybe other things. Let's find out. Everything.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, there we go.
It's on PlayStation, Xbox, Steam, and Switch. So
Only play it on Switch.
who?
I'm just talking to people in general. Only play it on
Oh,
Switch.
sure. Oh, that's a command.
Yeah, it's just a command. It's just
Bah.
throwing it out there.
Oh boy.
Obey.
Oh boy, obey.
Eh,
So I beat I Am Dead. I beat Sky.
Yeah.
I finished it. I just want to quickly mention I fucked up when I got to the end of Sky.
yeah.
There you reach a point where it's like the game's like you are locked into playing this.
Yeah.
If you don't want to, you can go back. And I accidentally pressed no, and it sent me back to like my home base, and I had to fucking do the whole thing again, and that just drove me bonkers. But it was my own fault.
Yeah.
I've got still other things to talk about.
Yeah.
We still going? We still trucking along?
Oh, whew, fucking A.
Anything you want to insert? You want to do a tangent here? You want to talk a little about life, history, politics, culture, mathematics, geography, topography?
Those last three I know very little about.
Wouldn't they make for good discussions though?
Hey, what's your feeling about maps?
Fuck them, you know. Can't stand
Fuck
them. Never use them. Never looked at one. I hate them.
Sometimes I get in somebody's car, and if they got maps in the glove box, I'll burn them right there in their car.
In the glove box.
I'll say, all right, 3, 2, 1, roll down your window. I'm starting a fucking fire. There's a lot of people won't drive me around anymore.
No, and that's also why they don't give you a license.
Yeah,
It's gonna be a great day in BLB history when you get your driver's license.
be a dark
That'll
day.
be your magnum opus.
Well, then
All
we'll
right.
see.
I'll lead you to somewhere else, somewhere very different.
Leave me to the water. Leave me to the water. As though I'm a camel, and you're
Do I have
not.
a game that's related to water?
Yeah.
I Am Dead is the closest thing to water.
No, you got another one here. You've got Helsing's Fire. That's the opposite of water.
That is true. I did play Helsing's Fire. So because of the fact that I learned about a Genova Chen game that I didn't know existed,
Yeah.
which is Cloud, I decided to look up other interesting independent artists, game artists, and see, do they have other games I didn't know about? And the answer is categorically yes,
Right.
across the board. They've all got older games or games that are available through itch or online,
Yeah.
or ones that people largely don't talk about. And so I was able to find a number of games from the creator of Papers, Please and the Return of the Obra Dinn, Lucas Pope. And one of his earlier games, is a mobile game called Helsing's Fire. And you play as Van Helsing, and you're fighting against Dracula. So I'm going to send you actually a video I screen recorded of this
Okay.
game, and I'll put it up for the audience to see.
Sure.
Because this game is a little hard to describe, but once you see it, it's easily understandable. I thought I deleted it for a second, but nope, it's here. Okay, check your WhatsApp.
Throw that hot rod on WhatsApp. Let me open this up. Okay, I'm looking at it.
Okay, so
There's all kinds of I'm seeing a lot of modules.
yes, but that's just like the level select.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm seeing the fuck is happening.
Okay,
Start talking to me because I don't understand what's going on.
Okay, so Helsing's Fire is a game, it's a mobile game, where you place down a torch, and you're trying to destroy enemies that are scattered around the environment. And you've got a set of potions down at the bottom, or tonics I believe they call them, that correspond to the color of the enemies. And any enemy that is caught in your light that you press a tonic on will be destroyed if it matches that tonic's color.
Oh, I see.
And the reason that this game ends up becoming a lot more interesting is because you get multiple colors of tonics, and you only want your light to be touching enemies of the corresponding tonic color.
Sure,
so you have to think about where you're placing your torch, what enemies the light is shining on, and when you want to tap your tonic in order to like fucking release it into the world, in order to strategically take out
Sure.
as many enemies as you can at once within the constraints that you're given, which is you only have 2 or 3 tonics of 1 or 2 or 3 tonics of each color to take out these enemies in as few moves as you can. And the strategy of finding out which barriers in the environment will block the light for the one that you don't necessarily want to hit, or if I can place it here to only shine on these, or sometimes the enemies will have shields of different colors, so you have to hit them with multiple tonics. It's a really interesting gameplay loop that that I found to be really compelling.
Yeah.
You see the gameplay. Does this interest you at all? How does this strike you?
It doesn't really interest me. I think it's a clever little idea,
Hmm.
but here's the thing about it, right? You're right about there being this like strata of games from creators who really love that exist
Yeah.
before there's a stretch before the jump that is Papers, Please or whatever.
Hmm.
And I feel like I've gotten all I need in terms of understanding Lucas Pope by watching
Sure.
this video you sent me a couple
No,
times.
absolutely.
Because as insofar as puzzle games go, it's a cute enough idea, but I don't. Tucker, if you had a fucking 24/7 CCTV camera on me for the rest of my life, I don't think you'd ever see me down playing Van Helsing's Fire.
Yeah, it's interesting because I had an experience with
Yeah.
mobile games when I was growing up where I didn't like mobile games you had to pay for
Right.
because I was a kid. I didn't have a credit card. I can pay for apps in the App Store on my own. So my thought process was games you pay for should be on console or on Steam, and free to play games should be on mobile. And so I
Yeah.
stayed away from premium games on the App Store, outside of the few exceptions like an Angry Birds or something that broke into the mainstream. But there's a legion of these games created by genuinely talented
Yeah.
creators that were released on the App Store that many people don't talk about because the most popular mobile games are the free-to-play ones. And Lucas Pope made this game that is really unique. It is perfect for mobile. It is incredibly robust. There's like 300 levels
Yeah.
in this game, and it's hard as dick. Like, this is not some schmuck-ass mobile game. It is a well-designed puzzle game with tons of content, really great art. It's got that in some of the text boxes that pop up
Yeah.
of Van Helsing talking or a rat talking or whatever. It's got the Lucas Pope art style of like one color people like you see in Papers, Please. And this game is really well designed. I'm not going to get super into it. I played an hour of it and I completed as many levels as I could before I just like could not figure out what was happening next. But it's a really quality game, and I recommend people try some mobile games that are premium, that are from these creators, because it's a strata, as you said, of games that are well designed, are high quality, are from great creators that just go forgotten because they came out a while ago in an era where premium mobile games just were not a thing.
Yeah, I think it sort of speaks to the fact that, like, when you said Angry Birds was a paid game, I had completely forgotten about that
Hmm.
because the economic realities of mobile development began to shift very quickly
Yeah.
when it became clear that people on phones demand one particular sort of game. And that does not mean
Yes.
there aren't exceptions, as we've explored, as you've just been saying here, but other things like Point P, right there.
Hmm.
And Florence is another one you tell me about a lot, and even
Yeah.
Wilmot switches on both, but you play it on a phone. There is a lot of really interesting and intentional design there, and Apple Arcade kind
Yeah.
of brought it back a little bit.
Hmm.
But Candy Crush and games of that ilk,
Yeah.
which are far closer to just like distractions and cogent artistic statements, which I know is not necessarily fair, but
Hmm.
these sort of hyper commodified, nickel and diming, colorful, cloned games are what I think pushed things like this out of the understanding of mobile games entirely.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So yeah, it's too bad, but I'm sure that there will be a time when we reflect back and think about this like early App Store period of genuine creative experimentation before
Hmm.
like moneyed archetypes started to sort of
Yeah.
take everything over, and it'll be probably interesting to look back on those. But
Yeah, I have a lot of fun memories with mobile games.
Yeah.
Again, most of which were free to play, but I still contend are
Right.
genuinely great games. But that's a conversation for
Yeah.
another time. But I started another free to play game
yeah.
this week,
Very
that
curious
came
about
out,
this one.
which is fucking phenomenal. Holy
Yeah, I'm gonna
god
download this right now as
damn!
you're talking.
Marvel Snap has released after a long time in beta.
I got my fucking phone in my pocket. Holy shit!
Ooh, gotta download Marvel Snap. But Marvel Snap is Hearthstone, but good. And I say that in as jokingly a sense as I can. But Hearthstone is always a game I was sort of turned away from because I don't inherently like card-based games. Like that isn't something that super appeals to me. I don't like physical card games. I don't like board games in general.
Sure.
Things with cards turn me away. But you say Hearthstone, but without the pay to win horse shit.
Yeah.
And you say high quality Marvel art and characters that I find interesting, and I'm like, fine, I'll try it. And I'll play it for like 3 hours one night and wake up every morning and want to do the daily missions and continue to unlock things and really get into the
Yeah.
design philosophy of the strategy of this game. It is a free to play mobile game that is just amazing quality. And I can describe its game flow if you'd like. But what do you know about this game?
I know a lot about this game. And here's what's interesting about this, and I'll remember this until I am fucking hit in the back of the head with a shovel and I'm killed via blunt force trauma. That's my prediction for how I'm gonna die. And I think you're gonna be the one holding the shovel.
Aye, Captain.
I remember I watched the Marvel Snapped reveal event. It was like a 9-minute video they put out.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, yeah, this game looks fucking awesome because it's fast rounds, 3-minute rounds.
Mm-hmm.
You're playing simultaneously, right? You're just throwing shit out. Or
Well, I mean, once you both make your move,
Yeah.
it goes for it. And
Right,
then you
yeah.
move on to the next match.
and it was like, yeah, they're saying all the right things to me. And then I remember, you dirty motherfucker, we were watching
Me or Marvel?
you.
Oh.
We were watching the
When you say dirty motherfucker, it lights something in my heart.
we were watching that awful Disney Games showcase. I'm like, oh, Marvel Snap! I can't wait to play this. I said, you want to
Oh, yeah.
play what? I'm like, oh, you can't play Marvel Snap. And now you're the one that's played it. But I would like to play it. No, I know this game. I think you're right about the art being beautiful. I think you're right about it having this sort of flow that's quite interesting. And I actually played quite a bit of Hearthstone. There was a period of time when I was playing it with my aunt pretty regularly.
It's a side of you I wasn't familiar with.
Yeah, my aunt and I would play it together. And I like that quite a bit, that kind of strategy. But the idea of, let's make a game very intentionally designed for the vertical phone and chucking shit around and its characters. I know, yeah, I'm gonna. Seems like a good one I can passively play here and there. So
Absolutely, because the rounds are so fast, because
Yeah.
it has that quick incentive of, oh, I lost this round, but I know what I did wrong, and I can kind of outread my opponent next time to move on. I did get addicted to this game as I was playing it for the second time, because the first time I played it, I was at work and I was like, oh, this is interesting, whatever. But then I gave it another concerted shot, and it was like 1 a.m. and then I was like, suddenly it was 4 a.m. I'm like, but. So what Marvel Snap is for the uninitiated is a Marvel card game, as I've been saying, but a game where there are 3 zones that you want to, by the end of the game, have claimed at least 2 of them out of the 3 to win. And you do this by placing Marvel character cards on your side, and each one has a how much it costs level and how much power it has level. And which sounds pretty simple, but where the real strategy comes in is the zones, as I want to talk about, and the powers of the cards, because each character has something, an ability, or most characters have an ability that corresponds incredibly lightly to the powers that they have in the Marvel universe. So one thing I will say that is great about this game, and why I say it's Hearthstone but good, is even the starting deck, which is obviously free, and is good enough to continue playing with. Like it's balanced enough. There's a good progression of cards.
have you paid? Will you pay?
Probably not. No.
Yeah.
There's a battle pass, which is the only way to get currently characters like Carnage and Miles Morales.
Okay.
But I have like 70 cards already, and like maybe Miles is good or Carnage is good, but I've got plenty of other cards that are good. So whatever, I don't care.
Sure.
But so your characters have different abilities, and the game progresses in a way that on the first stage of the round, you only have 1 energy. And so very few cards cost only 1 energy. There's Quicksilver, who shows up in your hand no matter what on the first stage. There's Squirrel Girl, who will go into one zone and so spawn 2 squirrels in the other zones. You got Hawkeye, who when he's placed down, if you place something next to him the other turn, he'll gain 2 power.
Yeah.
So like there's differences in these cards. And as each round progresses, you get more energy. So on round 2, you have 2 energy. On round 3, you have 3 energy, which expands the amount of characters you can place down and how strong they are. So by the end of the game, you're filling up each zone. You're trying to outthink who your opponent's going to place, and you're using your character's abilities to think about what you're going to play by the end of the round and what your opponent might play by the end of the round to outsmart them and use their own powers against them. So if you play Punisher, who is a 3-cost card, but he only has 2, I think, power at first. But for every card on your opponent's other side, he gains 1 power. So you think, okay, which of these zones will they place 3 or 4 cards in? And then by the end of the match, Punisher will be fucking great. He'll have like 7-8 power, which is awesome. Or Star-Lord, when you place him down, if you're opponent places down a card at the same time, he automatically gains 2 more power. And actually, all of the Guardians have that same kind of ability, but to different levels, which is kind of fun. And so you really are able to synergize your own deck in interesting ways and how you want to approach strategy. And it's, you're constantly unlocking cards. You're upgrading your cards visually. The only the only pay in this game other than the battle pass is to make your cards look cooler.
Sure.
Which give them animated effect, make it have a 3D backdrop, whatever.
Sounds fair.
But this game is really high quality in terms of its art. There's variants of every card. You got pixel varieties, you got baby varieties, you got alternate universe varieties,
Sure.
and each card with their ability has different effects. So Iron Man will have little jets come out of his card, or Hawkeye will be shooting arrows out of there, or Thing has a big blocky thing around him, and each of these effects and each of the sound cues is so well done that each card has their own personality, even though they're just a card. And so the pacing of this game is such that you start with your 12 card deck, and you're unlocking cards at a reasonable clip, so that by the time you're seeing a new card, you already know what the past ones do. So if I see someone place down Hawkeye, I see them place down Wolfbin or whatever, I'm like, I know what this does and I know how to counter that. Or I know how I can use that to my advantage, or why they're using it to their advantage, in a way that really makes it satisfying to want to learn this game and its meta and the abilities, and continually grow your arsenal and your own skill set. And I'm really loving this game.
You think you'll keep playing for a while?
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, sure.
It is
Hard
good
to tell.
enough that I've spent 6 hours with it in the last few days, and
Sure.
that's a lot for any game. But it is a game I can see myself playing for 30-40 minutes a day.
Sure.
Which again is kind of a lot, but just like a couple rounds a day. But I do expect to not stick with it forever, because
Sure.
I know what it is now, and maybe that I'm not a super competitive appeal person in general.
Yeah.
So I don't see me sticking with it long term. But for what it is, for the sensibility of other people who are more competitive, I think this will stick around for a long time. I think it's fantastic. Highly recommend.
Tucker, I realized the other game I have to talk about.
Yeah, you do.
I'm going to throw it in there. I'm not talking
Might
about
as well.
Modern Warfare yet. I'm talking about new Tales from the Borderlands.
Oh, see, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the kind of game that I feel like you would forget because you didn't finish it, so it doesn't show up on your backlog.
Right. Got a free copy of Tales from the Borderlands for 2K. By the time this video is out, unless Tucker's going to put it out in the next 36 hours, which is unlikely but possible.
I can't. I can wait.
Yeah, well, it's probably going to be out by the time this fucking video we're done recording. But
Wait,
the point
isn't the review embargo up?
No. Basically, the point is, it's a piece coming out that I wrote for Digital Trends, in which I interviewed people from Gearbox about performance capture, which is really interesting, because performance capture, for those who aren't familiar, and you'll hear more about it in my piece, is basically making the production of your game more akin to a film set, wherein you are capturing full accurate ranges of motion and their lines that they're delivering them in the set, and you're building props and all kinds of shit. It's a really fascinating conversation that I'm really glad I got to have, because I feel like I got a different insight into how games are made. Because I think we all still think a hacker man at his computer typing and modeling on the computer, but the reality of modern AAA game dev right now is that a lot of it's done as though you're making a film, and I think that's really interesting. So I'll give Tucker the link to put in the description for people to read if you're curious about that. But I also played the game a little bit.
Unfortunately,
I think the game is really monotonous. I think it's really uninteresting. The reviews seem to be pretty all over the place. I think it's sitting at like a 70, 71 Metacritic average right now. I played the first. It's a Telltale game, but it's developed by Gearbox itself this time, whereas Telltale made Tales from the Borderlands, but nonetheless it is a Telltale styled game.
And about 60 other games.
Yeah, and I just don't think it works. I played the first episode. There's 5 episodes. I think that the writing is very unsubtle and unfunny in its criticisms of capitalism and like industrialization and things.
I think that's just Borderlands identity.
Right. And so it's certainly possible, and I think the spread of reviews shows that there's people who, when Borderlands talks to them, they're receptive, and people who aren't, and I'm not. And so I found myself being... What's interesting is I found myself being compelled by the characters on a personal level, because you meet this really interesting cast of people who come from all different places. You got scientists. You got this one person who runs basically a frozen yogurt shop. You got you got this dude that works with a robot, and they're like a hitman duo. It's very interesting. I like the cast,
Yeah.
but they're situated in this world that I can't rock with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just like it's unsubtle, it's hammy, and it's not
Yeah.
helped by the fact that the mechanical interactions here are so uninteresting. Now, I totally understand QTEs, Telltale, bread and butter, but you can basically fail all of the QTEs, which frankly I would do sometimes if because I was playing on I'm playing a game on Switch and immediately went to playing on Xbox, and so my A's and B's and X's and Y's are backwards. So it
Mm-hmm.
accidentally hit the wrong prompt. Like hit Y, and I'm
Sure.
like, okay, I'll hit Y over here, but Y is up here on Xbox. I'm like, oh fuck, but it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
And there's dialogue exchanges, but Donkey said something really interesting in his most recent video about Last of Us, where he's like, Last of Us's dialogue feels real because people talk as they talk in real life. They talk over each other. The cadence is there's an organic cadence to dialogue in Last of Us, for instance. There's
Yeah.
no organic cadence here. It's person
Sure.
says a line. You've got four options to pick from. A white bar gets smaller and smaller. You have to pick an
Of
option
course.
before it ends, and so it just feels very stilted and it feels very old. And if you like Borderlands, you're probably buying this game without with or
Yeah.
without my blessing. You don't need my blessing to do anything. But I did not like it. I did not find it interesting, and I will not be playing anymore. So
Didn't expect you to enjoy it. Didn't expect you to stick with it. I'm
yeah,
obviously glad you gave it a try. You got that interesting conversation about it, which
yeah,
go into the description and give that a read. Probably more interesting than the game. But my question is for you
right.
about this style of game is this something you've experienced before? Do
Yeah.
you think a different world or aesthetic or story would engage you a little more with this kind of game, or is it the game structure that turned you away mostly? Well, I guess we know it was mostly the comedic tone and that,
Well, I think it
but
goes a little bit deeper. And I saw this being a complaint in reviews, so I guess it extends throughout the entire experience. But the only other Telltale game I played was Batman. And what I
mm,
liked about Batman, not only is that an IP I care a lot more about, but
of course,
because you had to be a little bit more on the ball as you're doing these QTs. It mattered
mm,
if you completed them.
sure,
But also, it was apparent very early on that you're making decisions that have a material effect on how the narrative progresses. Now,
yeah,
obviously, Telltale games are the thing of they kind of diverge and then converge again to what
mm,
they want the ending to be. I mean, that's a
yeah,
common criticism of those games. But nonetheless, your path as you take it feels like your own.
mm,
I never felt that way playing this.
yeah,
Like, there's one point where the planet you're on is being invaded, and you've got the option of like go hide or fight. And I'm like, shit, I'm like this scrawny little guy. We're this motley crew. We gotta get the fuck out of here. It's like, I'm gonna go hide. And then they're like, hi, dickhead, he's gonna go hide. We're gonna stand here and fight. And then immediately you're
sure.
fighting.
Oh, so your decision was overruled by your teammates.
Right. And it just
Your
feels,
your in-game teammates who are programmed to say this.
yeah, and it just feels like if I'm gonna come to a game about narrative choice, I want to make choices that feel
Of
like they
course.
impact the narrative. But instead, it
Yeah.
feels like I'm doing QTEs just to remind you to touch the controller. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Or making
Yeah.
decisions to give the thinnest possible veneer of choice.
Sure.
So, as I said, I think that the characters are very compelling, and the narrative of the game's production is very very interesting. But this final product is just simply not for me,
Yeah.
and I it just feels old. It feels very old.
Yeah. I the only experience I have with Telltale style games is the chapter and a half that I played of The Wolf Among Us.
Yeah,
Uh, don't laugh. The Wolf Among Us came out before Among Us. Uh,
I laughed when they said Among Us and Avatar.
oh, yeah, The Wolf Among Us 2 is coming out. Remember, that's a thing. But I've always been interested by Telltale's games,
Yeah,
but also simultaneously disinterested. I like how different they are, like how committed to their style they are.
yeah,
I like how many worlds and teams that they were able to work with to develop a ludicrous amount of games. So many that eventually tanked the fucking company, and now they're dead, but then they're back, and then someone else. It's a fucking thing.
yeah,
But I've found different appeals as I've grown as a gamer to where I might actually go back and try these games and not necessarily care about
sure.
the linearity or the lack of choice because I do enjoy just the simple interactivity. But I also look at something like Batman or I look at something like the Guardians game and I'm like, yeah, but I've seen Batman movies and I've seen the Guardians movies, so like, because even though it's a world that I like, it's just gonna be probably a worse version of what I like. So the only ones that really interest me are Wolf Among Us because it's entirely a unique. Don't I said don't. It's an entirely unique story. This is not based on a property.
Yeah.
And also The Walking Dead, because that's one of the highest critical acclaimed games of all
Yeah.
time. Apparently super emotionally impactful.
It is.
But also because I have no connection to Walking Dead.
Yeah.
I've never seen a single episode of it. I don't know any of the characters. I could say Clementine. That's a thing. I know that's a thing from this game. But that might make it just feel like its own story to me in a way that I'm not like basing it off something I know or making those comparisons. So I do want to play that eventually. Both of those. Eventually.
You don't want to play Game of Thrones?
No.
Here's what's interesting. The last thing I want to say about Telltale, because
yeah,
I think that people forget that they were making games before Walking Dead for a bigger IP than Walking Dead. Like they made a Back to the Future game and a Jurassic Park.
That's
game.
not a bigger franchise than
or sorry, a franchise with more legacy. Like Walking Dead is a recent IP. Like before Walking Dead, they were getting legacy IP. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I just think that that's really interesting, and people overlook that.
Yeah,
but brother, man, I don't give a fuck about Telltale. I will say that my interest is peaked to try a proper Borderlands again, though. And I have the Hand-some collection, so I'll probably try.
Yeah, so do I. Yeah. So do I. Okay, I still have a couple more things to quickly go through.
Yeah, and then I got the one I'm talking about. I don't know if the fucking COD beta is gonna happen. I don't know if I'm gonna be on it. I so many questions in my head. I need to talk about Modern Warfare too. But
okay, yeah, we can talk about that.
But
do you want to go with that now, or
you tell me what else you have? Because I've got your journal pulled up here.
So I have one more, or I have two more that are on here, both of which I can go through kind of quickly.
Yeah.
And one more that we need to maybe question mark about, because I don't have it on here because I didn't want you to see what score I would give it. But I played the entirety of Hey Pikmin. I finished the game. And so...
Talk to me about it. Right now. Shut the fuck up. I don't want to hear about anything else. I want to hear about Hey Pikmin.
Hey Pikmin. We might end up doing a larger conversation about this game in the future, which is why I maybe was a little reticent about talking about it here. But Hey Pikmin is and was and will always be the first ever Pikmin spin-off. And also a... Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
No.
And also a game that is largely maligned, especially by the Pikmin community. We know what Pikmin is, and this is not. It is a bastardization of Pikmin. And as someone who was not a Pikmin fan until about a year ago when I played 3, and has since, in the last couple of weeks, beaten both 1 and 2, and I played Bloom when that came out, I have now played to completion. Can't beat Pikmin Bloom, but I've played through every single game in the Pikmin franchise. And what I think is really interesting about Hey Pikmin, what are you analyzing?
I'm just really interested if it's going to be a positive or negative verdict.
Okay. I think this game is great.
Okay. All right.
I think that Pikmin is more than what Pikmin was. Or Pikmin can be more than what Pikmin was. And largely still is, with those 3 games being the only ones people care about.
Yeah.
And of course there's the first one coming down the line. But Pikmin, in terms of the collection aspect of getting your Pikmin, of throwing them, of calling them back, of having them carry things, is something that isn't done in other games. And I do think that it is important for the health and possibility of a franchise to experiment with other things. And I feel like not a lot of people give this game credit for taking a franchise that was the exact same for its entire existence and finally trying something new with it in a way that frankly works a lot better for the system it's on. It uses the touchscreen in great ways, the dual screen in ways that frankly I haven't seen in games, and Pikmin's gameplay concepts in different enough ways that make it interesting as a Pikmin game and interesting as a 2D platformer. And there are certainly criticisms to levy at this game, but I think it knows what it is, it commits to itself, and is surprisingly high quality for what it is. And I played like 5 hours of this game one day because I'm just like, these levels are so short. I'm so interested in progressing and seeing the new level gimmicks and concepts and additions to Pikmin's creature collection, because there's lots of new enemies in this game that are designed for a 2D space. I really, really enjoyed Hey Pikmin.
Yeah, I reckon that I'll like it also when you get a chance to send my 3DS back to me. Whenever I get that back in my hands, that's going to be my highest priority.
I already put it in there.
Yes.
So
very exciting.
So it's not coming out. Well, it came out, but it's back in and won't come out again. Don't worry.
Yes, I'm very excited to play it. The only thing I want to say now is I think you're right, but I think you're wrong about the reception of this game. Sure. Because I think that it was fairly maligned, and here's why. I think it's fairly maligned in the moment because you gotta. I really think with Hey Pikmin, you need to contextualize it around the time of its release.
Yeah,
You got to think about the fact that we are now, by the time it was announced, what, 2 years after Miyamoto said Pikmin 4 was almost done,
sure.
we
Yeah,
were we were getting it released onto a system that had just bastardized, not just, but relatively soon, recently bastardized Chibi Robo as a 2D
sure.
platformer. We were
Absolutely.
getting 2D platformers left, right, and center for Kirby and Mario,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
there were no 3D platformers, with the exception of 3D World on Wii U, and there was this general sentiment within the Nintendo community of no more 2D platformers, Nintendo, please.
Yes. Oh,
And then
absolutely.
you put Hey Pikmin out after the Switch is out, and
Yeah.
so you're being like,
Yes.
hey, this franchise that we're waiting for, you came back with a genre that's become overwrought on a
Yes.
platform that is no longer relevant. I think that all the criticism it got in the moment is fair, but I think what's unfair is the idea that it's not being given another chance. But I
Mm,
think it's the sort of thing of, in our moment now, why would it be? I think
sure.
there's going to be a sort of renaissance for a lot of these late 3DS games
Yeah.
down the road when people
Yeah.
have distance from 3DS and look back on it. And similar to how there's a lot of discontent about 3D World
Hmm.
because it was a sequel to a handheld 3D Mario, it
Yes.
wasn't
Yes.
explorative. Odyssey comes out, people start to look back on 3D World a lot more fondly.
Absolutely.
I think that in an environment with Pikmin 4, Hey Pikmin will be out, and then if people or Hey Pikmin will be back in vogue, and if people still dislike it,
No, it fucking
well,
won't.
you know
Yeah.
what I mean. In terms of, I think that sentiment could turn around on it.
Yeah. No,
I
absolutely.
think it's the sort of thing of, you're right on a macro level, but I think contextualized in its time, I think
Yeah. Well,
everything Hey Pikmin got said about it, I think is fair.
no, absolutely. But here's the interesting thing:
Yeah,
is I agree about all those criticisms being valid of the game in its time,
yeah,
but they're because of its time and because of the situation, and because of Nintendo as a company and the release of their games and all of that, not because of the game itself,
sure,
and or the idea of a
right,
Pikmin spinoff, which I do push back a little bit on that form of criticism you didn't talk about, but is a lot of people didn't like this game because it wasn't what Pikmin was, and they were
sure,
bastardizing Pikmin, and I don't think that's necessarily that's the criticism I mostly push back against
yeah,
because I wasn't playing all these 2D platformers in the time. I know that it was a problem, absolutely, and maybe they probably shouldn't have released it alongside all the other things.
yeah,
But for what the game is and what it does for Pikmin, for experimenting with something else, for being designed for the handheld, for
yeah,
expanding Pikmin in certain ways but staying the same in others, it's not a great game.
yeah,
But I do think that it's a good game and one that I found myself enjoying a lot more than I expected to because I'd never heard anything positive about this game.
right,
Period. Before I played it, we joked about buying a Pikmin game, which shouldn't be the case.
yeah,
Pikmin is a franchise that we love, and this is an entry in that series. And we were like, "Are we gonna buy Hey Pikmin? Oh boy, wouldn't it be funny if we bought Hey Pikmin?" And we bought it, and we split it, and we'll
yeah.
both play it. But I'm glad I spent the money on it. Frankly,
Cool.
I would have bought my own copy if I'd known it was as good as it was.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing it myself.
Yeah.
Very
And
much
then we
looking
can
forward.
have this discussion sort of again through the lens of you've actually played the fucking
Yeah,
game.
yeah. I'd
So
really like to do that actually.
yeah,
You got others you want to hit quick, or you want me to
yeah.
do?
Real quick, I played Nidhogg today
Yeah.
with Tanner about 6 minutes before we started recording this. Tanner had never played Nidhogg before. I was thinking about Nidhogg for a very interesting way, a reason that I actually don't really have time to talk about here. This is a short series of videos. You come here for our brevity, and I'm
Right.
trying to keep it short and sweet. So I tried to go download Nidhogg on my laptop. A Mac OS Catalina doesn't support 32-bit games, so I can't fucking play Nidhogg on my fucking laptop. So I'm like, Tanner, you've got a PC which is more flexible for Steam games. Let's get on your laptop. Let's download Steam. Let's download the 100 megabyte game that is Nidhogg, and let me just show you Nidhogg.
Yeah.
Because Nidhogg, I think, is one of the best multiplayer games of all time.
Yeah.
Because of its focus, because of its uniqueness, and because of its pacing. Nidhogg, I mean, if you've been around indie games, you probably are familiar
Yeah.
with the aesthetics of Nidhogg, the fencing concept, the get to the end of the other side and get eaten by the worm concept. But showing it again to someone who has never played it was really refreshing and exciting for me because everyone I've played Nidhogg with up to this point loves Nidhogg
Yeah.
and is super good at Nidhogg and has played Nidhogg for hours with their friends. And Tanner had never played it before, so I had to teach him a couple of concepts and the idea of holding your sword at different levels, and you can throw it, and you can dodge roll, and you can dive kick. these things that are second nature to me because
Yeah.
I've played so much Nidhogg. And what this game does is create a sense of back and forth that is more intense than any multiplayer game I've played. You know, you've got capturing a point in Overwatch. You've got trying to get more points for the flag and capture the flag in fucking Halo, or different back and forths for a lot of multiplayer games. But this is such a personal, I am trying to fuck you and you're trying to fuck me version
I've
of
been in
that
those
back and forth.
situations many times.
Godspeed, that it engages me on a much deeper level than a lot of multiplayer games do, because a match will last you as long as you can overpower your opponent, because it can last forever. It's about making sure that you get to the other side and your opponent doesn't. But I love this game. I love its aesthetic. I think the music is great. It's only got 4 stages. Actually, they added a 5th stage last year, which makes no fucking sense. But so 5 stages, 1 weapon, 2 characters. That's it. Basically only 1 game mode. But for what it is, in like a $5 game that is unfortunately only available through Steam, because it has been delisted on PlayStation 4, which is really frustrating. Nidhogg is one of my favorite games of all time, and I would contend that for its simplicity and design, it's one of the great multiplayer games of all time. And it's a game that I want you to try that I don't think you have. When you're in person with me and we have it on a laptop.
Yeah, I'd love to play it.
Because the energy of both of you being on the same keyboard and being next to each other and really crammed into this small space is an energy you don't get with other multiplayer games, because you got your own controller, you're separate, or you're online, so you're separate. But Nidhogg has this like ingrained passion because your hand is a centimeter away from the other person's hand, and you feel that tension in there. I love Nidhogg, and it's a game that I will continue to play every couple years just for a bit and be like, God damn, this game is fun.
Nice.
Final game for me, and then 1 game for you.
Yeah.
Hey, have you played Solitaire before?
Yeah, I'm not very good at it.
I'm not very good at it either because I never played it before. Because I would look at stacking these cards and I'm like, oh, I don't like cards. As we talked about with my Marvel Snap thing. I'm like, whatever. But cast your mind back to when I'm talking about Richard Hogg and Genova Chen and Lucas Pope and these creative artists that I like, but just never experienced other aspects of their gamography. And so then I'm thinking, what's one of my favorite indie games of all time? What's one of the games that got me into indie games? And that is Thomas is Alone. Thomas was alone, actually. Excuse me, in past tense. And Mr. Mike Bithell,
Creator of Tron game right now, making a Tron game.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Creator of a fucking John Wick game, John McHex.
John McHex. Subsurface Circular. Quarantine Circular.
Yeah. See, the thing is, I'd heard about John McHex.
Yeah.
And I guess I
John
kind of
McGex?
knew that. No, not yet. Soon though. That's what John Wick 4 is about. I'd heard of John McHex, but I don't think I ever associated it with Mike Bithell for whatever fucking reason.
Yeah.
But I'd never heard of any of his other games. I'm like, how is this possible? I love Thomas is Alone so much, and he's a name. I mean, he's working on big IPs like John Wick and Tron, and he's a name in the industry, and everyone loves him, and I love his game, and I'm like, what the fuck are all these other games? What the fuck is the Solitaire Conspiracy? I've never heard of this.
And who is in it?
And who is in it? As I came to discover, and I'm like, oh, okay, these games are all on Switch. Let me just check on the eShop to see how much these games cost. If they're less than $10, I'll buy them. Subsurface Circular and Quarantine Circular are both $15, so I'm gonna wait until those go on sale. Probably eventually. I've got plenty to play now. Yeah. But the Solitaire Conspiracy was $3.39 or $2.39 because on like an 80% sale. I'm like, fucking A. Why wouldn't I buy this game? And I'm only really buying it because I think Mike Bithell is a really interesting creative from the one game of his that I played. And like Richard Hogg, it is insane that the guy that made Thomas Was Alone then got to work on John Wick, but then made, during quarantine, a solitaire spy game. Yeah. With Greg Miller and Alana Pierce as FMV actors. Yeah. And that just released. And frankly, I didn't hear any fanfare about it. I don't think it got a ton of acclaim or anything, but this game is really interesting. Probably primarily to me because I'd never played Solitaire. Yeah. And getting it through a video game lens and a light story lens and a visual interesting aesthetic lens and a twist of mechanical lens, that I really enjoyed this game. And it was, you're noticing a pattern here. It was like 1 a.m. when I started this game, and then I just like I'm just gonna finish it.
Yeah.
I'm so fucking close. It's a game that you can beat in like 2 hours. But the idea is that you're like a Nick Fury for hire.
Right.
But you control spy teams, but you actually don't because everything's fucking cards. It's a solitaire game. And I think the main criticism I have with this game, the reason I don't love it, but also the reason it's kind of cool and interesting and unique, is because it's trying to tell you this story of international espionage and multiple teams that have different abilities and strengths and weaknesses and characters within those teams, and you've got these FMV cutscenes with Greg Miller talking at you that are trying to build this narrative. But then, so at the beginning of each stage, you get this little blurb that's like, you are headed to fucking Nepal, and you've got this team, and their different strengths are trying to undermine this guy. And then you drop in, and it's fucking solitaire card game. It's just a card game.
Yeah.
And so there's a disconnect there. And I think that's fun, but it also means I did not give a piss about this story. I had found no reason to want to get invested in it, to read these flavor texts at all, because it's not going to matter. I'm just playing cards. And, like, there's no evolution in these teams. But where the twist comes in is that each suit is a different spy team with their own little history and personality, if you fucking care to read into it. But they each have their own ability. That once you place down the ace to start a fucking solitaire stack, it unlocks that ability. So if you drop a jack, queen, or king onto a stack, it'll activate whatever their fucking ability is. That can be exploding the stack so the cards scatter randomly. It can be organizing the stack from highest to lowest. It can be stealing a card. It can be doing whatever. In a way that makes there more strategy for the flexibility of solitaire, and that changes the gameplay a little bit from round to round depending on which teams are your suits that round, because there's like 10 teams and they each have their own ability, and it's different depending on which level you're playing. But that's really the only difference with solitaire, other than it's placed the structure of world espionage and FMV videos and this cool techno aesthetic, and really great art. Like, it's a really well made game. And I really enjoyed it in terms of getting to solitaire for the first time, being so cheap, being so short, being really well designed, and it's a good game. I just don't love card games, and I don't love the way that it integrates story into a fucking just solitaire game. But otherwise, wow, what an interesting game. What a creative game. And Mike Bithell, God fucking speed, you know? Oh, I will say, though, I don't blame him, but Greg Miller's not an actor.
Yeah.
He's bad in this game.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
I saw other people saying that he was funny and they liked him, but I disagree. I thought he was bad. But whatever. I didn't really care. I thought it was funny.
I mean, that's not surprising. I mean, he's such a natural entertainer and personality, but that's a much different skill set than being like an actor. So
giving him a script and trying to deliver emotional weights with like a twist. Believe it or not, he's actually the bad guy. And he's like, you're trying to get away from my plan. It's like, Greg, I love you, buddy. You cannot deliver these lines. Sure. I will play Subsurface Circle and Quarantine Circle eventually, because I have no fucking clue what those games are. Yeah. I don't know what the kind of gameplay is. I don't know what the aesthetic is. No, nothing about it.
Pretty sure they're like visual novels, kind of.
No, spoilers.
Tucker.
God damn, it's time.
Tucker, I played Modern Warfare 2.
Now, I really only wanted to talk about this in a circumspect way for now, because I want to have a large conversation once we've both played the game, and also the possibility that we might be doing a back COD banter episode on this, which would include the opinions of Andrew Roscoe of My Star Wars Show fame and one Sergeant Dan. But I'll allow you to give some thoughts.
Here's the thing: I'm going to say everything I have to say about the game, and then I'm still, you know what? The conversation will be inherently different. I'm not going to do any spoilers. I'll say that 100%. No spoilers. Okay. I'm not going to spoil anything for you. But I need to get my thoughts on this out right now. I just have to do it. This is the last Call of Duty game I buy.
Ooh.
This is the last Call of Duty game I buy at full price. How about? Because here's the thing. I really enjoyed Modern Warfare 2019. I also really enjoyed Cold War. I did not like Vanguard. I think Vanguard is very poor. I think this is a lot better than Vanguard, but I also I'm very, very mixed on the game. And here's the thing about it. Call of Duty, what is Call of Duty? It's the biggest... It is currently the nuclear football in the games industry right now. As fucking Microsoft tries to secure Activision, and the CMA and everybody is getting involved, saying, PlayStation saying, we cannot compete without Call of Duty. We cannot replace Call of Duty. Well, I think it can replace its campaigns, because I think that Modern Warfare 2 is a very shoddy
Hmm.
and disappointing experience.
Wow. Okay.
Because here's the thing about it: when I'm just fucking playing Call of Duty, it's incredible. When it is a cinematic first person shooter, it's fantastic. First of all, the fidelity of Call of Duty have never been in question, but Modern Warfare 2 looks amazing. And the sound design, playing in headphones, you got different audio settings. So I was playing with headphones bass boosted, and it
Hmm.
sounded fucking awesome. And when you're shooting a guy and you got these movement options, it's a great, incredible foundation. There's a reason that Call of Duty is the most popular video game franchise because
Yeah.
it feels so good to play. But Modern Warfare 2 will not get out of its own way because it
Hmm.
seemingly is not confident enough to say, look, what are we good at? First person shooter mechanics. Let's make a 4 hour first person shooter campaign. I never want Last of Us crafting and stealth combat in my Call of Duty game.
Sure. Interesting.
But
Did
there,
not know that those were in there.
yeah, there are large sections of Modern Warfare 2's campaign where they just make mechanical digressions that are so tedious.
Hmm.
Crafting, Metal Gear Solid, like a bird's eye stealth,
Hmm. Oh, interesting.
little fucking disarming bomb puzzles, just like a lot of crafting.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what I made the allusion to earlier of like when you're trying to make a game for everybody and you're trying to include all these
Hmm.
mechanics and make it feel big and make it feel expansive and there's all these ideas, you water down what makes this game interesting.
Yeah. Sure.
Because when I am really in it, there are two set pieces in this game in particular that I will not spoil that are better than anything I've played in a shooter in a long fucking time.
Sure.
I mean, fucking incredible set pieces. But they are just surrounded by all of this frustrating stuff.
Yeah.
And it just bogs the experience down. And it makes me so annoyed that Infinity Ward can't say,
Hmm.
what is our strength? And let's play to that strength.
Hmm.
But instead, they make this campaign that feels like it's from 10 years ago, where every game has to include all of these other tangential elements
Hmm.
and throw them all
Yeah.
into the pie. And the result is a very uneven slice of pie when you're biting
Sure.
into it. And it's also just shoddy, even with the stuff it does well. So I was playing on hardened because
Hmm.
I like shooters and I like when a shooter is hard, and hardened
Hmm.
is hard, but not always. Hardened is sometimes very easy because the AI is not programmed well.
Hmm.
You know
Hmm.
that part in the Donkey Hitman video where he does the murder room and he leaves
The
everybody,
flower. No, no, no. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's like, no, I'm not doing anything. Holding the gun behind his back. Fucking
and
getting
there's a
hard.
pile of 30 dead guys in the room.
Yeah. Wasn't me.
Now in Hitman,
I
that's
quote that all the time. Like, oh, wasn't
yeah,
me.
and in Hitman, that's part of the design because it's
Yeah.
about doing goofy shit. It's about killing guys with banana peel and all kind of stuff. But when I'm
Hmm.
playing Call of Duty, and I've just done
God,
it,
I should play Hitman.
Hitman's great. When I've just done an hour of fucking Last of Us, and then I'm in a
Hmm.
combat exchange, but my character, for narrative purposes, can't sprint right now, and he's like a couple hits away from death. When the solution is train the AI through a doorway and then exploit the invincibility frames in the takedown animation to kill everybody and stack
Hmm.
up their bodies, or I'm doing a part where I'm on a roof and I'm looking down in a skylight and shooting a guy, but he will not move out of cover because you didn't trigger his AI pathfinding.
Yeah, sure.
I'm like, guys, what are we doing here? You're
Hmm.
making a Call of Duty game. You can't you
Yeah.
This AI needs to be better. And when you plan hard and you start to realize how can I exploit the AI but not in a fun way. Sometimes
Hmm.
exploiting AI can be very fun. But when it feels like I just need to get through this and I'm gonna exploit the AI to do that, it gets very disappointing.
Hmm.
Especially when you just start to compound these weird design decisions that I'm saying 25% of this game is one of the best FPS campaigns I've played in a long time. 75% of it is very, very repetitive or
Hmm.
tedious or overly familiar or not belonging in Modern Warfare 2.
Sure.
And I think that the narrative is also very distasteful, and I won't spoil it. But I
Sure.
think that the post credit scene, because there's a post credit scene, of course there is
Yeah.
maybe one of the most distasteful things I've seen. Like,
Mm.
there was a feeling with Modern Warfare 2019 where Infinity Ward was making narrative decisions to provoke a response
Yeah.
with those like lights out missions. with,
I've heard about them.
and they're really good missions. I love those. I'm not.
I popped the Modern Warfare disc in
Yeah.
yesterday. I was gonna play like a couple missions before Black Adam.
Yeah.
40 GB download to start the game. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'll do this tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm not.
Hopefully it's downloaded by now.
I'm not one of those people that's gonna say, "Oh, you can't talk about real world war, or you can't tell a game that is very clearly in the pocket of the American military." Like, I don't care. I'm a discerning person. I understand the problems with the narratives that they're spinning, but I still can enjoy them. And I love those missions where you're breaching houses in Modern Warfare 2019. But they just do certain things in this game because they know it's going to get a rise out of people.
Sure.
And I think that the post-credit scene is just sucks. So,
Okay. Well, yeah, I have no idea
Yeah.
what it is.
I Yeah.
I'm the more experienced COD player of the two of us,
Yeah.
but I'm also the less experienced modern COD player of the two of us. And as of the end of today, I will have played some of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019. I have played all the Modern Warfare games from the original trilogy. And I have access to, and I will download Modern Warfare 2.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly really interested to have this jump, because the most modern Call of Duty game I've played is Black Ops from 2010. Modern Warfare 3, 2011.
Yeah.
That was the last review I put up about 3 months late. But I really do want to play these games.
Yeah.
I want to talk about them, because what you're saying seems like this is already more interesting of a Call of Duty game than I've heard of.
Yeah.
Because they're making these decisions, they're introducing new mechanics that I don't know if I will dislike them as much as you do.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I'm also gonna have to get used to playing a modern Call of Duty game, over 12 years newer than the last one I played. So I'm excited to play both of these games. Without any severe spoilers, it does continue the story of 2019 or no? Do you remember the story of 2019?
It continues it insofar as that there are familiar characters.
Sure.
But another disappointment is that a critical character who is really interesting in Modern Warfare 2019 shows up as basically like a cutscene, and that's it.
Okay.
So it is as standalone as you want it to be.
Sure.
But as I said, look, there are portions of this game that are incredible, and I'm very excited if and when we do these larger conversations to talk about them in detail.
Yeah.
2 in particular, and then a third that is also quite good. But when we're talking about 17 missions and most of them are forgettable or frustrating,
Sure.
and they're wrapped in
Yeah.
this narrative that I just think is intentionally provocative,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, this isn't the last you've heard of Call of Duty on this channel.
No.
We have a series that is taking a hiatus right now, but I hope to get back to it someday. And I'll be playing this game. So I'll be done here. We finish up on a low note.
Yeah. I gotta piss.
Well, I gotta go do some other things.
Piss.
So.
I'm gonna make no bones about it, Tucker. There's pee in my bladder and I gotta release it.
All right. Well,
I refuse to apologize.
Godspeed, soldier. We will see you in another episode of Backlog Banter. Thank you guys for watching. Piss off.
That's what I'm gonna do. My chair is low. You know what I mean?
Sure. Do you have a little?
Now that I can show off on camera.
I think I got a. What? I never choked before.
Well, no, because look at
Should I
my
do this?
hardware here. Look at my
My feet.
hardware. It's just a wooden chair.
A wooden chair. Oh yeah, classic dorm room chair. My feet aren't touching the ground right now.
Do you like my stained dorm room carpet? Isn't that kind of nice?
What'd you pour there?
Nothing. That's from people of yore. I've contributed a little bit of throw up to the carpet. That's about all I've contributed.
You vomited on your own bedroom floor?
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever done that in my life.
not fully.
You only half-assed it?
Well, I threw
You
up.
gotta put 100% behind everything you do.
Well, I knew I was about to throw up, so I went to throw up into an Amazon box. But the problem is that the Amazon boxes are not airtight.
Are they vomit tight though?
Dumb boxes got holes in the corner.
Well, maybe you should stop nibbling on the corner of your Amazon boxes.
I don't know any other way to get into them.
Me receiving a package. I don't know.
All right. Well, you know what? Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Backlog Banter.